Hey, yeah. Hey, last video, it's the last chapter that you guys have to watch. So I thought I'd wear my red, white, and blue All-American flag for this last part of this and get really into it. Yeah. Okay, so this is part 4 of the Resurgence of Conservatism. So as of now, you should watch part 1 and 2 last week, and then part 3 this week, and then part 4. That's all you have to do this week, and then just jot down a couple of things that I talk about and either take a picture of that and email it to me, or take a picture of it and Schoology message it to me, or you can even, if you do it on Word, then just submit that to me through email or Schoology, one or the other, okay? If you're having problems submitting stuff, contact me and I will give you another way to submit some stuff. So, yay, this is the last time I'm really going to get to be on here and talk to you. Oh, sigh. Okay, so I got to move on with this. We are in the middle of talking about life in the 1980s. We talked about AIDS last time, and we talked about video games and all this stuff that showed up in the 80s. Now we're going to keep going with that theme, and we're going to talk about some other things that the 80s revolved around. So let's talk about activist groups. Hopefully you watched those 2 videos about AIDS. Guys, like I said, that was a really huge thing. AIDS increased the visibility of the country's gay and lesbian community. A lot of homosexuals were basically wanting to now defend their civil rights, and they've been trying to do it since the 1960s because they're people too, correct? So that's going to happen. A lot of musicians and entertainers in the 80s, they started using their celebrity status to get people to think about these issues. Irish rocker Bob Geldof, he organized Band Aid, and that was to help the starving kids in Ethiopia. And eventually grew into like a larger event called Live Aid. And then in about 100 countries, people watched benefit concerts televised from London, Philadelphia, Sydney, Australia. Then a new song came out. Okay, so remember, in the 80s, the beginning of the 80s, there was a new thing called MTV. MTV, guys, this is going to blow your mind, stands for music television. Did you know that? Yeah, this is back when what MTV was when it first was launched was a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week video radio station, you could say, okay? Nothing but videos all the time, all videos all the time of the music that was big those days. The very first song that they played, "Video Killed the Radio Star." You might have heard that, I don't know. And then pop music, everybody's talking about pop music. It was a big thing. And of course the 80s are kind of known now as the one-hit wonder decade. A lot of artists, I guess because of videos becoming so popular, there were so many artists that would come out, make a video, have a hit with that. Maybe the video was good, but maybe their song wasn't all that good, and so they never really had another hit after that. One-hit wonders. At the same time, talking about all these people coming together, all these artists in the 80s came together in 1985 and made a video, and all the profits were going to go to benefits. And in this video, there's going to be people like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie. If you're watching American Idol this year or 2 years before, he's one of the judges. Okay, a big hit singer, Dancing on the Ceiling, Hello. You know, used to be with a group you might have heard of before called the Commodores. Ask your parents. Ask somebody. Yeah. Anyway. There's so many people. Cyndi Lauper's in this. She's the one that did Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. So many people. And if we were in the classroom, I would be showing you this video, and I would name every single person that's in the video, and you would go, oh my goodness, Oh my goodness. So I want you to pause this now. This video, We Are the World, the video is in Schoology right now. It's called We Are the World. Go watch it and then come back, unpause this video and watch the rest of what we're going to talk about, okay? And I bet there's some of you that really didn't pause it and go watch, right? Okay, so go watch it though. It's really cool, and I just want you to see all the people involved in that song. Willie Nelson, that same year, he's going to organize what's called Farm Aid, and this was to benefit struggling farmers in the United States. Musicians are also going to publicize efforts. They're going to try to end segregated apartheid social system that's in South Africa. United States and other nations are trying to end that apartheid in South Africa. That was a really big deal. Senior citizens became politically active in the 80s after many years of improvements in medicine. Now people are living to be an older age because of all this medical advancement. They opposed cuts in Social Security and Medicare's. Their lobbying organization is called AARP. That I get mail from them all the time. Yeah. And I think I accidentally skipped a slide and I can't go back to it, but go back and look at it. So George H.W. Bush, he's the senior Bush. He's not the Bush that was president during 9/11. We're going to talk about Bush during 9/11 next week. Ronald Reagan's going to leave office. A lot of people wanted his domestic policies to continue, so the Republican committee is going to nominate George H.W. Bush. He was Reagan's vice president, okay? So I want you to pause this video again, and there's one more video link for you to go watch. Remember, if we were in the classroom, I would be playing these links as we go through like I always do, but we're not, and I don't have any way to play them while I'm recording this, so go watch this. He just promised the American people that he was not going to raise taxes. Read my lips. No new taxes, basically, is what that video clip is. So pause it and come back. All right, so the 1988 presidential election, Democrats wanted to regain the House, the White House, okay? They campaigned basically promising minorities as well as the working class and poor Americans many things. Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson was a Democrat. He tried to create a rainbow coalition of these groups. Wasn't very successful, but he was the first African American to actually run for the presidential nomination. Democrats are going to end up nominating, though, Michael Dukakis. So you're going to have President Bush and Michael Dukakis on the Democratic ticket. So, let's see what happens. This was the result. See all the red states? Yes, the red states, those are the states that Bush won, and the blue states are the states that Dukakis won. And that's who we elected as our president. Okay. So Bush is going to continue Reagan's policy with Soviet leader Gorbachev. In the late 1980s, the Soviet economy wasn't doing very well, not good central planning, a lot of spending on their part because of that arms race. Remember, we talked about that under Reagan. He created the first, he created a non-fighting time build of the arms, and a lot of that had to do with what he knew that the economy in the Soviet Union wasn't doing very well, so he thought if they build up their weapons, then they're going to go broke. Okay, so let's see if that happened. He's also going to establish glasnost. This is openness. Basically, it's going to allow a lot more freedom of religion and speech. So you see, communism is starting to already go downhill in the Soviet Union. Okay, glasnost actually spread to Eastern Europe, all those satellite nations that were part of communism as well. And in 1989, a lot of revolutions replaced communist rulers. Democratic governments in Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. And now we have the end of the Soviet Union. At midnight, November 9th in 1989, guards at the Berlin Wall opened the gates and bulldozers started leveling the symbol of communist repression. East and West Germany was reunited. It was a big street party, I tell you. So communism was basically being abandoned in Eastern Europe. However, there was a communist group that didn't want to give up. They tried to stage a coup and arrested Gorbachev and sent troops to Moscow. And then Russian President Boris Yeltsin expressed to the United States that they needed support, and then the coup collapsed and Gorbachev returned to Moscow. So all 15 Soviet republics declared their independence, from the Soviet Union in December of 1991, and that is when Gorbachev is going to finally say, Soviet Union is no more. And that was the end of the Soviet Union. Guys, we talked about the Cold War. It started right after we bombed Japan with those nuclear bombs 2 times, right? And it went all the way to 1991. So that's 1945 to 1991. And think about how many presidents we talked about during that time. A lot, right? So we're going to get a new world order. Bush basically said after the Cold War, a new world order was going to begin, and this is going to introduce some military challenges all around the world. Communist leaders in China were wanting to stay in power. China's government had relaxed controls, but they still repressed political speech. It's like, okay, you can do this and this, but when it comes to politics, people, keep your thoughts to yourself, okay? In April and May of '89, Chinese students and workers, they held pre-democracy demonstrations at Tiananmen Square in Beijing. I remember watching this on TV. It was a big thing. That's China's capital. In early June, the government tanks and soldiers crushed those protests. So basically what they did, they were protesting, and the government came in with bulldozers and just put it away, put it to side, okay? Not bulldozers, but tanks and stuff. A lot of people were killed, a lot of pro-democracy activists arrested. Later, a lot of them were actually sentenced to death. So the United States and several European countries, they couldn't believe this was going on. They stopped arms sales and reduced diplomatic contracts with China. They refused to do business with China. So Bush is going to, he resisted harsher sanctions. He thought that trade and diplomacy would actually change China's behavior. So basically what that means is, no, if we keep going, maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll change. Panama. Panama. So I'm going to skip over this just because I want to talk about some other stuff. But if you want to go back and watch this, feel free. Persian Gulf War. All right. So the most serious crisis in the Middle East is going to happen when an Iraqi dictator, whose name you might be familiar with, Saddam Hussein. Yes, the same Saddam Hussein that was involved and that we got after 9/11. Basically, he sent his army to invade oil-rich Kuwait in August of 1980. Don't wait for the bomb! Bomb Kuwait! U.S. officials feared that the invasion might be the only first step, and that Iraq's goal basically was to capture Saudi Arabia and take control of all of its oil reserves, okay? United Nations basically talked to Bush and convinced him to join a coalition to try to stop Hussein in Iraq. They set a deadline for Iraq to get out of Kuwait, and if not, then he would be forced out of there. It was clear Iraq did not want to say, okay. So the coalition forces launched Operation Desert Storm in January 1991. That is what happened. That is what the Persian Gulf War was. And I can remember because it was a new era in war all of a sudden, because you had these weapons that could be fired from miles away and were destroying things. And I remember seeing reports on the television. It would be at night and you could see flashes go through the sky, and these were those weapons, these bombs that were going and bombing. And it was a trip. It was so different. It wasn't your typical soldiers in a forest or whatever, or on a plane trying to get each other with bayonets. It was a different kind of war. When it was over, fewer than 300 coalition troops were killed. Thousands of Iraqi soldiers were dead, though. So who do you think won? Bush declared Kuwait liberated, and Iraq, well, they had to ceasefire terms. So when the recession started in 1990, that was caused by the end of the war, Soviet threat faded, the nation started not spending as much on military spending. They started laying off soldiers. They started laying off defense industry workers. Companies started downsizing, laying off workers to become more efficient. And the nation's high level of debt also did not make anything great. The government basically had to borrow money to pay for its programs. Remember, we have all these programs now, right? We're going to see a lot of banks close, but remember, we have FDIC insurance. Excuse me. No, I don't have the coronavirus. Government had to use money to pay interest on its debt, and that could have been used to fund programs to boost the economy, but what else are you gonna do? Man, we're almost done with this thing here. So the 1992 election is going to come around, and Bush is going to call for a cut in the capital gains tax. The tax paid by businesses and investors, and when they sell stocks or real estate for profit. He tries to improve the economy. He thought, hey, this tax cut, it's going to actually encourage people to expand and businesses to get bigger. But the Democrats call this idea a tax break for the rich. And they went to Congress, defeated it. So, aware that the federal deficit was actually hurting the United States, Bush broke his no new taxes campaign pledge. This would turn a lot of people against Bush. Bush would win the Republican nomination, but blamed congressional Democrats for the governor's credit. So, we're going to have the election in 92. What's going to happen? I'm glad you asked. Democrats are going to nominate an Arkansas governor by the name of William Jefferson Clinton. You know him as Bill. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yeah, that's the guy. He was actually impeached because he lied in court. Okay, he did not tell the truth when asked by the House and the Senate, and they impeached him. So there's a way to tell you that impeachment does not mean to kick somebody out of the office. It means to bring formal charges against, okay? So Clinton called himself a new Democrat. He said, I'm going to cut middle tax classes, reduce government spending, and reform the nation's health care and welfare programs. So he wants to reduce government spending. Doesn't that sound more like what a Republican would do? But anyway, an independent candidate. He was a billionaire Texas businessman. His name was H. Ross Perot, which I, by the way, met one day when he was on his campaign in front of the radio station in Big Spring when me and my husband both worked there. He ran for president, and he stressed the need to end deficit spending. Remember, that spending money that we don't have. His no-nonsense style, he was a real cowboy kind of dude, really big ears. He was a cool guy. I've got a picture of me standing with him somewhere. A lot of Americans like this. It was a grassroots movement. So people are going to put Perot on the ballot in all 50 states. But remember what happens when you have a third candidate? You're going to split the vote. So a lot of those people that might have voted for Bush are going to end up voting for Ross. So Bush is going to lose the election. Does that make sense? Clinton is going to win the election with 43% of the popular vote. You only have to have 270 electoral votes. He's got 370. So it's a pretty big win. Bush won 37% of the popular vote. and Perot just 19. But again, it had that 19% been added to Bush, what would have happened? Yeah. So Democrats are going to keep control of Congress. 46-year-old Clinton, first person from the baby boomer generation to occupy the White House, and that's where we are today. So that is the last slide. Wow. The next unit that we are going to be on is Modern America. And because we don't have the time, I mean, I only have really 15 minutes that I'm supposed to give you guys of work a day. If you look at it like what we were doing when we were in class, it was an hour and a half every other day. So it was like 45 minutes every day. And so that's been cut by 2/3. Wow, Mrs. Stevens did math. That doesn't happen very often. And so rather than go through the entire PowerPoint for the 2000s, I'm going to post it anyway. And if you want to look at it, you can. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Here's what you're going to do next week. I promised you guys at the beginning of the school year and all year long that one of the last things we were going to do is watch a 9/11 documentary. And the documentary is quite lengthy. It's got a questionnaire sheet that goes to it. That's why I was calling some of our paper packet people today to make sure that they could watch videos on their phones. So you're going to watch the video and try to answer as many questions as you can. If you can't answer all of them, I'm fine with that. As long as I have some of that done, you'll be okay. But I guarantee you, once you get into it, I don't think you're going to want to stop watching it. You can do it how you want. If you want to watch a little bit every day, that's fine. If you want to watch the whole thing in one sitting, that's fine too. I think you're going to find it very fascinating. But Mrs. Stevens, what are we going to do the week after that? Guess what we're going to do the week after that? I'm going to send you a link to the movie I've been telling you about all year long with Nicolas Cage, our hero, because if he can still get work, you guys can do anything, right? Yeah. It's called World Trade Center. And I usually have one or two in all my classes that say, oh, I've seen that. I don't think I've had anybody that has said they've seen it. Well, I usually show it on Amazon Prime because that's where I bought it, but I can't upload anything from Amazon Prime. So guess what? I bought it again from YouTube. Hi, and I'm going to give you guys the link to that so you can watch it. You don't have to take notes during it. You don't have to do anything. Just watch it, because that's all we were going to do in class anyway. That was going to be your reward for like working hard all year. And I guarantee you, you're going to like this movie. It's about two first responders that get trapped underneath one of the towers after the towers go down. And like I said, I think you're going to really enjoy it. So without further ado, I really miss you. Don't forget, I've also got CNN posted every day. It's not mandatory, but if you want to go watch it, feel free. Comes with my own puns at the end and everything. Yeah. I'll have to post another Mr. Betts song sometime before we're finished too, just so you can go back and watch it, because I know you want to. It'll be like the review song to Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah. All right, guys, I really so miss you. I wish we were there in person. But hang tight and let me know if you have questions. Ciao.